Hello, hello. How goes it, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the live chat over on YouTube. Chat, can you let me know if you can hear me okay? Make sure that the volume on the mic is working good. Can you just please let me know that the stream is up and running well? Welcome to another episode of the live chat. For those of you that are joining for the first time, I am Benji-Sales. I'm sure you already know me from Twitter if you're here live. If you're finding this video later, I'm Benji-Sales. I talk about the video game industry in general, video game sales, and the business side is what I'm best at. But I talk about everything and passionate about games. Anyone that's in the chat right now, make sure you start dropping those questions in the chat. This show is about you. It's about what you want to talk about. It's about what you want to break down. So really, your questions are providing all of the content. So make sure you drop those questions in the chat. There's a lot we can talk about. March is stacked in new video game releases. Finally, the video game industry seems to be kind of waking up. January and February were both really, really slow for major new releases. So we've got Doom Eternal hitting. We've got Animal Crossing New Horizons hitting. We've got Ori and the Will of the Wisps. We've got Persona 5 Royale, Half-Life Alyx. You know, I could go on and on. There are so many big new games releasing. So finally, March gets really exciting again. The Final Fantasy VII Remake demo just came out, so we can talk about that. It seems to be doing very, very well on PlayStation Network. Xbox dropped a whole bunch of specs info. So there's a whole bunch, that we can break down today. Sorry, I didn't do a live stream really last week. That was for a two-part reason. First of all, I was really sick during the beginning of the week. And then secondly, I was on a couple podcasts last week. So I was with the Nintendo dads talking about Animal Crossing Direct and things like that. So you can find that podcast over on the Nintendo dads channel. And then I also joined Saltiest Gaming, and we talked a whole bunch about Xbox and things like that. So 2 podcasts last week, plus being sick, it made the stream kind of hard to do. And I just got done with a workout. So if I'm a little out of breath today, that would be why. Just got done working out. So I see some chats starting to drop on the side. So let's take a look and let's dive in. Raven Hunter saying hello. How's it going? Stream is better. Good. That's great to hear. Alex Bailey. Here we go. First question. Benji, have you seen Ring Fit numbers stock over the last few weeks? Great question. And Ring Fit has been a very interesting scenario, right? So it's definitely hitting shortages now. So this is really the first time in the US that I'm starting to see really widespread shortages where it's happening all over the place. Even during the holiday, Ring Fit stayed pretty good in stock. It wasn't hitting, super shortages all over the place. It wasn't really hard to find. There might be 1 or 2 locations, that were running a little bit low, but most places had it in stock well. Then all of a sudden in January, you see this big bump for Ring Fit, right? If it placed number 9, if I'm remembering correctly, in January. If I'm misremembering, sorry about that, but I think it was number 9. So you saw that big jump. That could be for a variety of reasons. I'm sure New Year's resolutions are part of that, right? It's a new year. A lot of people use that time to focus on health, focus on getting in shape. So I'm sure that contributed to a degree, as well as the continued strong word of mouth around the title. So you see that jump up in January. Then in February, all indications are it sold very, very well through February. And now you're starting to see widespread shortages in the US. So yes, Alex Bailey, it seems to be selling very strong. And it also does seem to finally really be hitting those shortages. So that's going to be interesting to see how that affects it long term. One thing that we are seeing pop up is a lot of like scalping and like reselling that's going on over to China because of the coronavirus. Ring Fit has become a very hot item over there because so many people have been in quarantine for the last month or so. And so it's hard to really get out and get exercise, right? So we've seen it's skyrocketing over there in popularity. So that's definitely an element, I think, of why you're seeing these shortages and these sellouts. But I also think it can't be contributed to just that. I also think that it's doing extremely well just in general audiences worldwide. So yeah, Ring Fit seems to be absolutely taking off, Alex, and shortages are real. Um, Alex, again, with another question. What are your thoughts on Animal Crossing pre-orders? So Animal Crossing is tracking extremely strong, huge, massive, to be honest. I'm fully expecting Animal Crossing New Horizons to be, I mean, definitely, I would say in the top 5 biggest launches for Switch ever so far. I really think it can do that. It's tracking insanely big. I'm not expecting it to hit those Pokemon numbers, so don't expect like a crazy 16 million, first quarter. I would not expect that, but I do think it's going to be huge. The biggest launch ever for the franchise. Top 5 biggest for Switch. I had someone ask me an interesting question on Twitter the other day. They said, do you think it can hit, I believe the number was 10 million in the first quarter. Now it comes out at the very end of Nintendo's fiscal quarter. There's only about 2 weeks for it to get shipments. So if it hit 10 million shipped in 2 weeks, that would be extraordinary. I'm not sure if it can hit that. That's going to be a bit of a tough call to get to that number. Right now, I would expect at minimum for its first quarter, that 2-week period, 6 to 7 million. Now it could be way over that. Don't take this as in final, it's going to do 6 to 7 million. That's just really the baseline. I think it's almost impossible it comes underneath 6 to 7 million. So somewhere around that, could even go up to 10. You never know. But Animal Crossing New Horizons, yes, it's going to be a massive, massive launch. Huge. Saltiest Gaming. What up, Saltiest? Thanks for having me on the other day on the podcast. It was a blast. It was a ton of fun. I feel like we had a really good show. Anyone that hasn't checked out that podcast yet, head over to Saltiest Gaming. We had a good time over there. Raven Hunter, on a scale of 10, what would you rate the Final Fantasy Remake demo? Great question, Raven Hunter. I actually loved it. I thought it was really, really good. So first, let's talk about the positives. Let's talk about the things that were really good about the demo, I think. And I'll get to the scoring at the very end, okay? So first of all, visuals are absolutely stunning. I played it on the PS4 Pro. Looks absolutely gorgeous. The character models are, I tweeted out, I consider them S tier. They're incredible. The way they captured the classic designs and brought them to modern day in just amazing. I mean, it really feels like, that's something that's so easy to mess up. Whenever you're taking beloved character designs from years and years ago, for a lot of people, this is their favorite RPG ever. Not everyone, of course, but a lot of people. So to take that, it's a real risk you could mess it up. And I thought they captured every single classic design I've seen just amazingly. It looks spectacular. Visuals are just incredible. So that's a strong one. I'm seeing some mixed opinions on the score, the orchestrated score. I think it's very, very good. Really, really liked it. I thought the combat's solid. I enjoyed it. It definitely takes a little bit of getting used to, so I could see it throwing some people off early on, but it really started clicking with me. The boss battle was much more difficult than I expected. A lot of times in demos, it's really, really easy. It's kind of just there for you to kind of run through it. But I found the boss to be a nice challenge. I didn't lose to it or anything, but it wasn't like an easy breezy battle. It was pretty intense. So overall, I loved it. I think I would give the demo a 9 out of 10, close to a 10, honestly. I know that is generous, but I was blown away by it. The only concern I have at this point, after actually playing the demo now, I have only one concern, and that is length and content. I'm not one of these people that hates that the game is being broke up into different parts. I think it makes sense because if you go back and you look at the original Final Fantasy VII game, the amount of locations and things you go to, I mean, it would be an enormous undertaking to put that into one game. We're talking that would be in development for seriously, like 8+ years. I don't think people want to wait that long. So I'm not opposed to it. I just hope that the content's there. That's the only thing I'm worried about right now. Not saying it's not going to be, but that is my only concern out of what I've played for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I just hope that this is a 20 to 30 hour game and it doesn't feel stretched out. Hope it feels full. But yeah, overall, Raven, I loved the demo. Really, really good. Alex Bailey, what are your thoughts on Switch system stock for US currently? So right now, the Switch stock is basically fine. That's for both neon, that's for gray, that's for light. Right now in the US, stock is looking plenty good. Now, for those that have seen the article, I think it was from Business Insider, or no, it might have been somebody else. Can't remember off the top of my head, but there was an article recently that came out talking about this switch in the West, in the US and Europe, could be facing shortages towards the end of March and early April. So right around that Animal Crossing launch timeframe. And the reason for that is due to coronavirus over in China, where a lot of these consoles are manufactured. Now, we got the shipments in time for March and April, or for January and February to be basically plenty fine. But right now, we're lagging behind when the shipments happen, right? So right now, stock looks good. But that time that all of the manufacturing was down is now going to start hitting us late March, early April. So right now, Alex, stock looks good, but that could change rapidly depending on, just how dire the shortages are. So right now, nothing to worry about in terms of shortages, but that could change. That's something definitely to keep an eye on as the month goes on. All right. Saltiest Gaming. How's the Xbox SAD doing sales wise? I saw a thing on Twitter today. You can get one for $159.99 on sale. So the SAD did really good over the holidays, Saltiest. It did very well in November, December, whenever they were having really, really, really cheap deals on it. Right now, sales aren't that strong because honestly, sales aren't that strong for Xbox, period. And they're not that strong for PlayStation 4, period. January was basically a disaster for both. It was basically some of the worst numbers of the entire generation in sales. Like seriously, sales have now basically they're grinding to a halt. And February is looking to also be significantly down year over year. So not strong currently for the SAD, but that's across the board. The only thing right now that's really still moving a good amount of units is Switch, honestly. That's basically about it. That's for a couple reasons. First of all, Xbox and PlayStation have been on the market for years now. And also, secondly, of course, the next platforms are already announced. People already have Series X on their minds. They already have PlayStation 5 on their minds. So sales are just rapidly slowing. 2020 is going to be a brutal year for hardware sales until the end of the year. I'm expecting the end of the year to go crazy. But outside of Switch, the first 9 months or so of 2020 is going to be rough. Ricardo, hi Benji, hope you're doing good. Ricardo, thank you. I am feeling so much better. Last week was a rough week for me. I was pretty sick. Then my daughter got sick. She's only 1.5 years old, so she wasn't sleeping. So last week was a rough one, Ricardo. But thanks for the kind words. I'm feeling super good today. It's starting to warm up where I live. It's nice. Armador, Animal Crossing, 10 millions in the end of March. I think 6 million. Yeah, Armador, I talked about this a bit earlier. 10 million is going to be tough just because it has such a short time frame. I'm not ready to fully commit to that 10 million number yet for March. I agree with you. 6 to 7 million feels about right considering how short of a time frame it has. Just about a week and a half to 2 weeks. So if it was longer, if it had a full month and a half, I'd be totally down with 10 million. It's just going to be tough. Not impossible, but very tough. Rang here. Hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Animal Crossing is a game with very strong legs. If it ships 10 million in 1 month, final life to date are going to be insane. I think it'll be a bit lower than that, like 8 to 9 million. Yeah, I'm with you. Yep. I feel like we're all kind of in that same wheelhouse, 6, 7, 8, 9. I know that's a gap, but in that range, 10 million is a steep ask. I think it's really hard to hit that. Saltiest. And as you know, Ryan, Animal Crossing is known for incredible legs. If you look at New Leaf, I mean, it sold forever, like forever. The game actually didn't launch that huge. It launched well, but not huge. And it eventually went all the way up to 12 plus million lifetime. And that was because it had just fantastic legs. Saltiest. The Final Fantasy VII demo is good. I'd give it a 9. Yeah, right with me. I had some camera problems when switching characters. Yeah, I've heard that. You're not the only one I've seen say that, Saltiest. I've seen other people also say that as well. Camera didn't bother me too much. There was a couple times it felt a little weird, but it not enough to really bother me. I've also seen some people say they didn't like fighting airborne enemies or like some of the turrets that are further up. I didn't have too much issues with those either because I would usually switch over to Barrett for that. I wouldn't really mess with Cloud. I would just switch right over to Barrett, and I feel like he's pretty easy to hit them with. But yeah, it's not perfect. I definitely get why some people have certain issues with it, but me personally loved it. The demo really impressed me. And I think sales are going to be enormous. I kind of tweeted this, I think it was just a couple days ago. The closer we get to launch, from what I'm seeing in pre-order data and from what I'm seeing in online metrics, I really think Final Fantasy VII Remake, despite only being on PS4 at launch, is going to launch bigger than 15. Final Fantasy 15, I think it's going to happen. So it's going to have a massive launch, especially for the genre. Elias Stapleton, do you think this is the month for PS5 reveal? Any thoughts? What a great question, and something that we have all been wondering, right? Where the heck is the PS5? If you would have asked me in January if I thought a February reveal was going to happen, I would have bet money on it. I would have been very, very confident in it. And it did not happen. Nothing in January, nothing in February. They've talked a bit. I don't agree with some of the conversation that's out there where they're like, Sony hasn't revealed or talked about anything. We did get those Wired articles. We have had a little bit of info, but yeah, it does feel like, one of the reasons I think it feels like Microsoft is so far ahead of Sony in terms of communication is just that Game Awards reveal where we saw the console, they were up on stage. It felt like an event. And then B, the Twitter really tweeting out the specs, Phil talking quite a bit about the system and its features. It just feels like right now, Xbox has a lot of momentum, but there's still a ton of time for PlayStation to completely knock it out of the park. We still have probably 9 months before launch. These consoles are probably coming out in November. So there's still a lot of time for them to get out there and get that communication. But I do think, Elias, we need to get that going. 9 months sounds like a long time, but to the lead up of a brand new console launch where you're going to need pre-orders on those systems, you're going to need third parties to start announcing their games, right? We need Assassin's Creed to get out there and be able to announce because they're coming out this holiday, and they aren't the only ones. There's other huge third-party next-gen games that really can't start their marketing until the platforms are revealed. So yeah, it's time. It needs to happen. So if they wait past March, that is crazy to me. It is an interesting decision, to put it mildly. Some people I've seen have said maybe it's because they're trying to not hurt sales of PS4 around these big new releases that are coming out. PS4 sales are already dire. They're bad. They're not like they're okay, at least in January. We'll see how the rest of the year goes, but it was rough. It was a very rough month. I can't go too into details because of NDA, but basically January was one of, if not the worst months ever for PS4 sales. So they're already slowing. The announcement's not going to hurt anything more than it already is. So will it happen in March? I don't know. Should it happen in March, Elias? I think so. Ryan, since I saw you want to play the Division 2, yep. Did you play the Division 1? And if so, what you think about it? I really liked the Division 1, Ryan. I know I always pronounce your name wrong, and you told me on here one time how to pronounce it. I'm so sorry. You're a regular here. I wish I pronounced it better, but yeah, I really liked the Division 1. The Division 2, I have no idea why it took me so long to get into, because I really liked the first game quite a bit. But yeah, I'm starting the Division 2 up. I'm seeing a lot of people posting on Twitter about how they're really excited for the new expansion that just dropped, Warlords of New York. So I feel like it's the perfect time. So yeah, I'm going to be jumping in this week and playing a bunch of that. Absolute MMA. Ooh, I like the name Absolute. I'm a huge MMA fan, so I like that. If you're referring to MMA like fighting, huge fan. PS5 will be revealed before June. That is for sure. I agree. Absolute MMA. June or later would be crazy. That would be crazy because you'd be talking, less than half a year between announcement and launch. I don't think third parties would be happy about that. I really don't. I'm not saying from Sony's point of view. I'm saying from Ubisoft and EA and Activision. I think they would be very frustrated with that, very frustrated, because these console manufacturers, one thing people don't know, they heavily basically request third parties to not announce and not show any games for next gen until the platforms are revealed. Jason Schreier tweeted out a little while ago about how Sony got very upset with Ubisoft over Watch Dogs, and they got very upset with when Star Wars 1313 were revealed. They were very upset about it because the platform hadn't been shown yet. So they do not like that to happen. So I think from third parties' perspectives, the closer we get, the much more frustrated they're going to be. So before June, for sure. March, maybe it's 50-50, I would say, but I would say March or April are almost a lock. I'd be shocked if it's later than that. Armador. I think the Animal Crossing on DS sold about 14 million. I don't think it will hit 10 million in 2 weeks and no holidays December time. Yeah, only Smash and Pokemon hit 10 million, and they are bigger franchises. I agree with you. I think 10 million is a tough ask, especially like you mentioned in a non-holiday period, right? Where in the springtime, it's not the same as November and December, where you can ship huge amounts of units to stores because you need that inventory for the holiday spending season. So makes it tougher, but still expect a huge launch. Elias, the reveal of Final Fantasy VII revealed that the game is exclusive for PlayStation, but the other chapters too. That's a great question. What do you think of this? And other thing, do you think PlayStation having Final Fantasy VII as exclusive is huge? I think it's big, Elias, and I think that was an impact that's been felt for quite a while. So, sometimes something that some people don't realize is when a big game gets announced, even if it's like years in the future, that can move hardware even before that, right? So I'm not actually expecting a massive hardware boost when Final Fantasy VII comes out, just because we're so late in the gen. But I think Final Fantasy VII from announcement, from when they very first announced that it was coming, has had a definite impact on hardware. So I think it's a big move. We know it's only 1 year exclusive because basically Square Enix has made this very clear in terms of the packaging. So expect it to come to PC, and I'm assuming Xbox as well, considering Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy 15 and basically all the major Square Enix games come to Xbox now later, at least, if not at launch. So we know it's coming to other platforms later. As for the other chapters, if they'll also have this 1 year exclusivity, that's a great question. And I'm not sure. That's a hard thing to figure out. There's been no messaging about that. There hasn't been anything in the communication that states every episode is going to have this 1 year exclusivity. So it could just be for the first one, but tough to say right now. Avery Cope, if it's as long as Resident Evil 2 was, then I'm cool with it. I think you're talking about Final Fantasy. I'm wanting 20 to 30 hours. I think that's pretty solid for a JRPG. I don't need this game to be like a 50 to 100 hour game. If it was like an Elder Scrolls, I'd want that, right? Because we get an Elder Scrolls once every, we didn't even get one this generation. So if it's a Grand Theft Auto, if it's an Elder Scrolls, I want that 50 to 100 hours. Final Fantasy VII, I don't think has to be 20 to 30. 30 would be perfect, but even if it's like 25, I think that's solid. Absolute MMA. Final Fantasy VII Remake stomps the hell out of Animal Crossing 100 times over. Actually, Absolute, that's interesting because Animal Crossing might outsell it. Honestly, it's going to be interesting. That is a very interesting race to watch. I haven't even really thought too much about that because I've been thinking about more Animal Crossing versus Doom Eternal because those are the two that are about to drop. They're literally at the same time, and Animal Crossing is exclusive, whereas Doom Eternal is going to be on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. So that has actually been the competition that I've had in my mind, even though they're very different games, but that's kind of the ones I've been looking at. But in terms of Final Fantasy or Animal Crossing, believe it or not, could be very close. I know Final Fantasy is huge with the core gaming community, but Animal Crossing hits such a wide margin of consumers. So that'll be an interesting one. Alex Bailey, what do you think Bethesda will have for release this fiscal year? Yo, that's a great question. We know Doom Eternal. Well, actually, that's the end of... You're asking next, like this coming the next fiscal year, I'm guessing. Wow, that's a good question. Probably the game that Arcane are working on. What was the name of that game again? Man, I can't remember it now. Arcane's new game might be due. I think there's a strong chance for that. Starfield, maybe just because they announced that a while ago, but we haven't even seen the game yet. But they also did that with Fallout 4, if you'll remember. Fallout 4 had a very short turnaround between like gameplay reveal and release. They came out like it was at like 6 months or something like that. It was very, very short window between whenever they actually fully revealed and the game came out. So Starfield is a possibility. I'm not like banking on that, but I wouldn't say because we haven't seen gameplay yet, that means it's not, because we know Bethesda is okay with very short turnarounds. Starfield, maybe. I would say Arcane's new game, I would say. And man, besides that, it's hard to say. But those are probably the two most likely contenders. Elder Scrolls is still years off. That's a very far off project. Oh, and then you said as an upcoming. Yeah, those would be my guesses. Ruger, any idea of how Final Fantasy VII Remake pre-order sales are compared to Resident Evil 3 Remake? Thanks, Benji. Good question, Ruger. I can tell you on PlayStation by itself, just the PlayStation platform, Final Fantasy VII is outpacing Resident Evil 3. So on that platform alone, just looking at that, it's Final Fantasy VII is tracking to be the bigger game. Now, if we were to talk about broadly, because, Resident Evil 3 is going to be available on multiple platforms, a little bit tougher to say. Man, great question. And those are both going to be in the same NPD report as well. So that'll be interesting to see which is bigger of the two. I'll just leave it at that for now. I'll say Final Fantasy VII is going to be bigger, at least at launch on PlayStation. But cross-gen, not sure. Cross-platform, not sure on that. James, which PS5 sequel are you most excited for? Horizon 2, God of War 2, or Spider-Man 2? For me, James, it's Horizon 2. I've seen a lot of people talk about these. I had a tweet about it, that one thing that PlayStation did really, really well this gen, they did a lot of things amazing, but if you can look at one thing that I think will have a huge payoff with the PlayStation 5 is their big marquee first-party games, their big exclusives. They set up so well for sequels, both in terms of storylines. If you look at Horizon, if you look at Spider-Man and God of War, like you said, all three of those, zero spoilers, but the ending of those games really set up some interesting stuff for sequels. So A, in terms of story, they've really set next gen up well. And then B, also just in terms of quality, Spider-Man, Horizon, God of War, all these games were phenomenal quality. So A, you have a story that you're going to want to see what happens next. And then B, you're going to have confidence in these games because they did a really, really good job in developing the entries prior. So that's going to pay major dividends on PlayStation 5. In terms of the ones that you're asking, I'm most excited for Horizon 2. I loved the first game, but I think out of those three, the one with the biggest room for growth is Horizon. Spider-Man was amazing. God of War was amazing. I expect the sequels possibly to be even better, but Horizon, that was really the first stab that Guerrilla ever had at an RPG like that. They made Killzone. They didn't make games like this. Whereas Insomniac, yes, it was their first Spider-Man game, but they made games like, Sunset Overdrive that had these like movements and third person, and God of War. Obviously, that studio has a history with the franchise. Guerrilla, this is the first time they ever made a game like this. So I think the potential for improvement in Horizon 2 is really up there. And considering how good the first one was, it could be phenomenal. Let me grab a drink really quick, y'all. All right. What we got? Avery, did 343 Industries just stealth drop Halo 1 on PC today? Did they, Avery? I did not see that. Like I said, I was working out right before I got on here, so I might have missed something. It's definitely close. They've been tweeting and hinting, and it popped up on the store. So I'm not sure about that, Avery. It very well may have dropped on PC. I don't know. If so, that's kind of crazy. They just stealth released it. But it's close either way, whether it is or not. Sorry, I'm scrolling up. My feed auto-scrolled, so I don't want to miss any questions. Raven Hunter, any predictions for E3 this year? Great question, Raven. First thing is it going to even happen? So it's tough to know right now. We just had GDC be completely canceled for the time being. Their plan is to try to do it again over the summer. E3 right now is saying all things are full steam ahead, but we don't know what's going to happen with coronavirus. We just don't know. It's literally a complete unknown. This thing could fizzle out in the summer months and kind of go away, kind of like what we see with the flu. This is a very different virus than the normal flu, but you never know. Maybe it'll be more of a seasonal thing. Maybe it'll die down by the time we hit summer, but we don't know yet. Could be going strong through summer as well. If it is, E3, I expect to be canceled if we're looking at a situation similar to right now. Now, if things improve, the big prediction I think is going to be just Xbox is going to focus on games. We know Sony's not going to be there, so I can't really comment on them. But I think Microsoft expect a very, very, very strong focus on game announcements. I could see Microsoft doing their own event prior to E3 where they really fully talk about the rest of the hardware. Everything else we need to know, maybe 1 or 2 games revealed there, but E3 I think is really going to be all about game announcements, both games that are going to be coming soon and games that are going to be coming years out from all of these studios that they've bought. So Xbox, I would expect major announcements around gaming. Less probably focus on hardware. Maybe they announce the price there, but I don't think they're going to be spending a ton of time talking about the box. I think it's going to be about games. In terms of Bethesda, if they do a showcase, definitely you're going to see whether it's coming out this year or not. They have to show Starfield, I think. The game's been announced for too long now, and Bethesda has been quiet for too long now in terms of like their first, Bethesda game studios, not id, not Arcane. I think they literally have to show Starfield. So I'd expect to see that at their show. And yeah, those would probably be my main ones. Nintendo will do a direct. So I think we'll probably finally see Metroid and Bayonetta 3. Makes sense, right? Those games have been in development for quite a while. And I know Metroid had to restart with Retro, but they've been in development for so long. I think you finally see those games too. Saltiest, glad you're doing better, my guy. Thanks, Saltiest. Thank you. I appreciate it, man. Very much appreciate it. I was feeling pretty low for a little bit there. I kind of tweeted about it. I struggle with depression. I'm sure many of you and many people everywhere struggle with anxiety, struggle with depression. And yeah, I had a rough go there of the depression. It was hitting pretty hard. But I think I'm bouncing back. I think I'm kind of getting out of it. Armador, how is Switch sales looking in February compared to last year's February? I know you can't say numbers. I don't expect that, just asking. I think it's going to be kind of similar to January in that it's going to be kind of in the wheelhouse of the year before, give or take a little bit. Don't expect like huge growth in February, I don't think, and don't expect like a big decline. Again, can't go into numbers, but January was relatively flat to the year before. So I kind of, from what I'm saying, think February is going to be similar. March is going to be where you see a huge spike. Once we get Animal Crossing, it's going to boom, blow up. February could be up a little bit, but I'm not thinking it's going to be like, a 30% increase or anything like that. Could surprise, but I'm not expecting that. Ruger, is there a chance Resident Evil 3 Remake opens higher than Resident Evil 2? Shockingly, Ruger, there is. I would have never predicted this. I would have never guessed that what was going to happen. Resident Evil 2 traditionally is the bigger game. If you look at just total sales and in terms of like the community, Resident Evil 2 has always been like kind of like more beloved in a way than Resident Evil 3. So my expectation when they announced RE3 Remake was it's going to do really well, but it's not going to launch as big as Resident Evil 2. But yet what I'm seeing in pre-order data says the opposite. So Resident Evil 3 actually might open bigger than Resident Evil 2. And it has a couple things going for it. Not a lot of competition. So Doom Eternal is going to come out in March, but really outside of Doom Eternal, there hasn't been much lately. Now I know Final Fantasy VII is really close afterwards. I am aware of that. But what I mean is leading up. This year's been pretty empty. So people looking for games, maybe they grab Doom Eternal, maybe they don't. There hasn't been a ton of new releases on the slate to get people to go out and buy games. So it has a relatively empty time period before it. And then B, I think the Resident Evil 2 remake was so good, like the quality was so high, it made people more confident in Resident Evil 3. So it's looking like it might. Ruger, there's a very good chance. Physical copies, I don't know, but I'm hearing strong things about digital. So yeah, it could. Resident Evil 3 could be bigger, at least at launch. Bahamut, since the demo of Final Fantasy VII Remake is great and people are loving it, yeah. Do you think it pushes more sales? I do. And this is interesting because I don't always believe that. I'm asking this because some people think demos do the opposite. So Bahamut, I've talked about this on the chat. I'm usually of the opinion that demos don't really help sales usually and don't really hurt sales unless it's a bad demo. I'm kind of like in the camp where maybe occasionally it helps, maybe occasionally it hurts. It kind of just balances out and doesn't really mean that much in terms of sales. The demo is so beloved, and I think so many people were concerned about this going into it that I actually do think this is the rare case where a demo is helping. I think it's one of the rare circumstances we can say the demo is having a positive impact on sales. So Bahamut, I do think so. Chun-Li, fantastic presentation in the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, the visuals are stunning. They're stunning. Karen Buckley, is it possible Nintendo will not reveal their 2020 lineup until E3? After Animal Crossing, nothing is concrete. Yeah, that is interesting. So Nintendo has essentially, like you noted, after the end of March, who knows? I mean, seriously, who knows what Nintendo games are coming out or when? Their slate is incredibly empty. Now, it's not in terms of games we know are coming. We know Xenoblade Definitive Edition. We know Bayonetta's coming. We know Metroid's coming. We know there's a new Zelda on the way. Like, in terms of announcements, we know there's quite a bit on the way. But in terms of dates, yeah, I mean, it's almost empty. So I would think they would announce that before E3. But considering we haven't had a general direct yet, we only had the Animal Crossing one. Man, tough to know. I'm surprised we don't have more stuff dated, to be honest. All right. Avery, to be honest, I don't care what the PS5 looks like. We know the specs and it's just going to sit on the shelf. We need details on the controller. I hear you. I want to see more. It's time to talk, Sony. I don't think it's the end of the world. They haven't yet. If we go through all of March and all of April, though, I personally think it's a poor decision. Now, I don't think it's going to doom PS5 sales. I don't want to go into hyperbole, but in terms of marketing, I think it's a bad choice. Phil, Xbox is dead. Discuss. I will not discuss that because it is not. Definitely declined from last gen. Zero debate on that, but dead would be completely false because it's going to sell over 50 million consoles. Xbox One's still going to do over 50 million this gen. So that's literally nothing comparable to like a Wii U. A Wii U would be a console I would call dead. Like that console was a legitimate bomb. Xbox One is going to do over 50 million. That's not a dead platform. It's just not, it's just really not. Now it's nothing compared to PlayStation 4 sales, and it's a big decline from 360. But 50 million is nothing to sneeze at. Ryan here. I don't know why I feel an announce close to the release is a better idea for Sony. Really interesting. I just don't think so because of third parties. That's the main reason, Ryan. I don't think it's the end of the world in terms of Sony first party games. I just think third parties behind the scenes will start to get pretty pissed off. I really do. You need a marketing cycle. Like you gotta advertise these games. And if Sony's out there telling Ubisoft, don't talk about Assassin's Creed, or if they're telling, Activision, don't talk about Call of Duty or things like this, people are going to get upset. Armador, I work as a marketing strategist in one company and can tell you if PS5 is not revealed to the end of April, it's going to be delayed. 6 months for a console launch is just a must from this kind of product. I agree with you, Armador. I think they need to talk. I'm with you 100%. Ryan, no, you are pronouncing my name right. Sweet. Glad to hear it. I feel like I was butchering it. Game Observer giving us a wave. Hello, Game Observer. I'm going to go for about 10 more minutes, and then I actually have to go to work. But there's still a lot of questions here. I want to get to those questions. I'll go about 10 more minutes on stream. Then I got to get ready, go to work. Thanks for jumping in the stream, by the way, everyone. I appreciate it. We got, it's been hovering around 30 people. Thanks. That's awesome for the middle of the day. I really appreciate it. Here's my spiel. If you could give the video a like, it helps the channel out a lot. So if you feel like it, if you enjoy the stream, drop a like on the video. All right. Cow Tonello here. Hello, Benji. Which one do you think is going to sell better? Final Fantasy VII Remake or Resident Evil 3 Remake? We talked about this a bit earlier. That is a tough one. So on PlayStation, I think Final Fantasy VII is going to sell better between the two on PlayStation. Talking about PlayStation and Xbox and PC, it becomes a little bit more of a difficult ask. Final Fantasy VII probably still could be bigger because if we look at Resident Evil 2, it's done 5 million so far, and that was multi-platform. Resident Evil 3 is probably going to perform around the same as Resident Evil 2. Now, granted, Resident Evil 2 has only been on the market for a year. It's not done selling. It's going to do more than 5 million. But, man, tough call. PlayStation alone, definitely Final Fantasy VII. Multi-platform, I actually still kind of lean Final Fantasy VII. I think 7 can be a 10 million seller. I really do think so. 10 plus million. I think it's very possible. Blanco, how much do you think The Last of Us 2 will sell in the first week? Wow, great question. Massive. It's going to be between that and Spider-Man. Spider-Man was enormous. It was a complete freaking monster when it came out. There's been so much debate for so long. Which is bigger? Is it Spider-Man? Is it The Last of Us? I've gone both ways on this. I'm going to make a bold statement. I think Last of Us 2 is going to launch bigger. I think so. I think Sony fans are so hungry. I think that game's pedigree is so high. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make the prediction. You guys have it on video now. So if I'm wrong, you got it on video to rub in my face later on. But I'm finally going to commit The Last of Us 2, bigger launch than Spider-Man. So there you go. Ruger, Final Fantasy 15 shipped 5 million worldwide day one. If Final Fantasy 7 Remake opens bigger, wow, that's huge. Indeed. Like I said, I'm expecting a monster. In Japan, some of the stuff we've seen coming out of it, a little bit of the pre-order data from over there, indications are as it's outpacing 15 in Japan, which is a good sign because Japan is a market that outside of Nintendo has kind of just been, a little bit slowing down. Nintendo is very strong in Japan, but PlayStation's been kind of slowing down. So if 7 in Japan opens bigger than 15, wow, worldwide, that speaks volumes considering how strong PlayStation is globally right now. So yeah, it could do it, Ruger. I'm telling you, it very well could. Artemore, Blanco, are you asking just US or worldwide? Okay, you guys are debating there. Avraj Pada, why do you think Microsoft is pushing so hard on specs for the Series X? Could they get away with $599 or does it need to come in at $499? Ooh, good question. So Avraj, $599 is only possible, and this is a theoretical, if Xbox Series S is a thing. We've heard rumors about it. The Lockhart, Microsoft has notedly not talked about it at all, which makes me think that's not locked down yet. And Digital Foundry seem to hint that they are kind of in the same boat. They just did a video on this, and they kind of indicated that this isn't locked down either yet. We know it's real. We know Lockhart is a thing that has been developed. It's an idea they're playing with. I would say if Lockhart comes out, you could theoretically do 600. I think it's a mistake. I would not go that high, but you could theoretically do it because you have such a cheaper console entry point. If there is no Series S, right? If they decide to pull out of this and they just focus on one system at launch, you cannot do $599. It will bomb. It will not happen. You can't have only one device on the market that expensive. 500 is already going to be a steep ask, but I think for how powerful the Series X is, this is using RDNA 2, which is something that you can't even buy for your PCs yet, which is interesting. This is a complete flip around of last gen, where when the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One came out, they were, the most powerful consoles that we had yet, but they were also at the time compared to PCs, relatively mid-range. They weren't like the latest cutting edge technology in PC. They were like mid-range technology. When the Series X comes out, it's going to be using the latest, greatest cutting edge RDNA 2 technology. So that's a very different proposition than last gen. So I think 500 is actually doable and safe for them. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think they have to go to 400. I think 500 works. As to why they're talking about the specs so much, as a complete guess, I think it's because they believe they have the power advantage. We don't know yet. Sony hasn't given the teraflop number on the GPU, and PlayStation 5 could be even stronger. But my guess, considering they're going so hard right now on teraflops, I think Microsoft believes they're more powerful. So I think that's kind of why they're doing this. I think that they're getting that messaging out there. Hey, we're the strongest console. Ryan, Uncharted 4 did 2.7 million. I think The Last of Us will 100% do better than this, maybe 3.54 million. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be big, way bigger than Uncharted 4, actually, I think significantly. Could even double Uncharted 4. I'm dead serious. Would not even be shocked if it doubled it. Joey Tones. Splatoon 2 has hit 10 million worldwide. Animal Crossing going to do 12 plus. Oh, easy. For sure, Joey. I would go higher. I would go 15 to 20 million for Animal Crossing. Yeah, Ryan saying more than that. Yeah, I agree. I think 15 to 20. 20 is even doable. 15 for sure. 20 is doable. Where we at? Oh, everyone's saying Deathloop. Thanks. Yeah, Deathloop was the arcane game I couldn't think about earlier. I think probably there's a strong chance that Deathloop is a next fiscal year Bethesda title. I think maybe, but they got to have something, right? You can't go a whole fiscal year with nothing. So I think Deathloop and Starfield are really your strongest front runners. Doom Eternal is going to already come out, so you're not going to have id with the game ready. You can't do the horror project they're working on. It doesn't seem like, because they switched directors and stuff, so I'm guessing the production on that game slowed down. I don't think it's canceled, but slowed down. So Deathloop and Starfield are the strongest contenders. Avery, if Pokemon sold 16 million, then Animal Crossing will have no trouble outselling Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, Lifetime for sure. I think we were debating launch earlier. Lifetime, Animal Crossing probably will outsell it, because New Leaf did over 12 million units. So if Final Fantasy VII does over 12, that would be very impressive. Not impossible, but it would be very impressive. But I think, Animal Crossing is probably going to do like 15 or 20. So not saying Final Fantasy VII can't do it, but that would be a major overperformance. If it does 15 to 20 million, wow. Artemore, Splatoon 2 is very... Oh, wait, we talked about this. Excited for Horizon. Venom and Spidey 2, let's go. That would be fun. I'm not against it. Ruger here. Considering Kingdom Hearts 3 has sold more than Resident Evil 2, I'd be shocked if Final Fantasy 7 sold less. I agree. Joey, does PC have any big new releases in April? Resident Evil 3 could do very well on Steam. Yeah, I definitely think so. It should be huge. That's a good question, because Final Fantasy's skipping it, right? Final Fantasy's just PlayStation at launch. Trying to think if there's any other really big games hitting Steam in April. I could be forgetting something, but Resident Evil seems to be the biggest. So yeah, could do very, very well on PC. Artemore saying Final Fantasy VII Remake will end somewhere at 10 million lifetime, while Animal Crossing will hit 15, 20. Boom, we're in the same ballpark, Artemore. Agree with you. Josiah saying just dropped. I guess that's about Halo. Cool. That's fun that they just stealth dropped it. I like that. Stealth drops can be exciting for games. Ryan saying, I also had a rough 2019, but 2020 is looking so much better. Glad the same for you. Thanks, Ryan. To anyone that, I don't want to go on the huge tangent here, but for anyone that suffers from depression, just know you're not alone. A lot of us have it. It sucks. It's tough. It can be an up and down. Life can be a challenge. And just know you're not alone. A lot of us experience it. So I don't know if that will help. I don't know if it'll give you any strength when you're feeling down, but just know, you're not alone. Artemore, Kingdom Hearts is much bigger in Europe than Final Fantasy. Oh, interesting. I actually didn't really know that. That would be something for me to look into. I haven't dived in and compared that data. Final Fantasy VII will sell a lot, but I don't expect sales like Mario, Pokemon, Call of Duty. That is very interesting, Artemore. I was not aware of that, actually. All right. Because in the U.S., it's different. In the U.S., Final Fantasy is bigger than Kingdom Hearts. So not something I was super familiar with there, that in Europe, it's kind of flipped. Interesting. Oscar, what do you think PS5 specs will look like compared to Series X? I think they're going to be comparable. Xbox might have a slight edge. Who knows? PlayStation could have a slight edge. My guess is at the end of the day, they'll be relatively close. You might have a bit of a gap. You might have like a 1-2 teraflop gap in terms of GPU. CPU is going to be almost the same. RAM's going to probably be almost the same. They're both going to have SSDs. I would say it's very comparable. You might see a slight edge one way or the other, but I would not expect either of these consoles to be much, much, much more powerful than the other. Probably the same ballpark. I think it's going to come down to games, honestly. I think it's going to come down to games. Ruger, we got just a few minutes left to answer a couple more. Avery, do you think we will get a Q1 Nintendo Direct this year? Outside of Animal Crossing, we have no picture of Nintendo's lineup whatsoever. I would think. It seems to be all focused right now from Nintendo's on Animal Crossing, like specifically. But like you said, we need to get some dates. We need to get some announced dates because their lineup is completely empty after March. Not in terms of games, like I said. We know they're coming, but we don't know when. Benji. Hi, Benji. It is a good idea to have 2 SKUs at launch. Didn't turn out that well for the lower SKU, Wii U, PS3, and 360, right? Great question, Benji. Typically, we haven't seen it be a big impact, the cheaper SKU. A lot of times consumers, especially early on, right, whenever you first launch a console, the people that are going out and buying day one at full price when the library hasn't built up are your hardcore gamers. Like, that's who it is. It is your hardcore demographic. And most of those people are going to be aiming for the most expensive box. They want the best of the best. They want the best thing they can get. They're already going out on day one and buying this platform. So at launch, I think a 2 SKU strategy is not necessary unless, like I talked about earlier, you think your more expensive box is going to be expensive as hell. If it's going to be really expensive, then yes. Otherwise, I don't think it's necessary at launch, maybe later on down the pipeline. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Artemore, anybody know if Benji has a Discord? I actually don't, Artemore. I have been part of Discords before, and Discord for me is like a up and down. I've had good experience in some Discord channels. I've had really bad experiences in some Discord channels. So I haven't committed to making one of my own yet. I've thought about having a dedicated Discord for people really interested in sales and this kind of stuff. I have toyed with the idea. But as of now, I don't have one, Artemore. Might come down the pipeline. That's just one thing I've kind of held off on. All right. Last questions here. Benji, the beginning of this gen has been plagued by tons of remasters. It seems with smart delivery, it won't be the case anymore next gen. How will this impact third-party devs? Yeah, great point, Benji. I don't think that you're going to see many remasters at all with smart delivery. You know, it seems like it's going to be mostly patches for games that came out. You can't really sell a remaster. You can, because if you notice Xbox's wording, they said they're encouraging devs, to do where you have an HD patch. Technically, it sounds like you could completely re-release a second version. You might see some third-party devs try that, but I think it will not go well because you're seeing companies like Cyberpunk, like CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk, where they just said you buy the Xbox One version, you get the Series X improvements at no extra charge. They're going to give you that patch for completely free. You're not going to pay for the enhancements. So I think if you're a company that tries to charge people, it ain't gonna go well. So yeah, I would expect to see very few remasters. We have someone saying a whole bunch of interesting words. Wound Up. Hi, I've missed most of the chat. Sorry, Wound Up. And then Artemore, have a good work, man. Wound Up saying thanks. I think you need mods. Yeah, I probably should do that, huh? I don't have mods as of now, so I probably should start doing that as the chat gets bigger. Okay, everyone, we're gonna wrap it up here. There's one question here. Mr. Moss, what do you think about something from PS5? I would say March or April. I don't think it's going to be later than that. All right. Thanks, everyone. thanks for another chat. If you feel like it, give the video a like if you enjoyed this. If not, then whatever. It's not a big deal if you don't give it a like or not, but I definitely appreciate it. Always have fun doing these. Sorry I didn't get to one last week. Like I said, I was on a couple podcasts, and then I also was really sick during the beginning of the week. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for jumping in the chat. We'll do another one of these next week. Hopefully we can talk about some PlayStation 5 stuff soon, and have a good day. Peace, everyone.